Fernando Alonso's trip down the grid in Spain was very short-lived, and despite Mercedes' new and improved car, Hamilton could do very little to stop Nando cruising to a second-place finish in Montreal. Aston Martin's massive jump in form this season has been followed up by regular upgrades that seem to be doing their job, helping the team maintain their place at the front of the grid in hot pursuit of Red Bull. But are they actually any closer to catching this season's leaders? Do they have more coming that will make it possible to win a race this season? Or is the gap to Red Bull deceptively small? Let's check it out. The Aston Martin, which Fernando Alonso took to second place in Montreal, just 9 seconds behind the winning Red Bull of Max Verstappen, featured a heavily updated sidepod arrangement. The AMR23 sidepod arrangement, with its deep waterslide channel on its upper surface, was already highly distinctive. They took the Alpine design and really ran with it, making this incredible valley through the middle of the sidepod. The new bodywork retains the same basic layout, but with an enhanced undercut in the front lower edges of the sidepod, while the waterslide feature has been narrowed and deepened. The undercut and waterslide work in unison in accelerating the airflow towards the rear of the car. The two airflows merge to create a more powerful stream of air directed between the rear wheels, where it flows over and around the walls of the diffuser, increasing the performance of the underfloor. As the airflow from the undercut makes its way there, it passes the various cutouts along the floor's edge, which trigger vortices, helping to seal the floor. The undercut creates a low air pressure behind which the oncoming air rushes to fill. Anything enhancing the pressure difference, such as exaggerating the undercut, improves the performance of the car. Similarly, narrowing and deepening the water slide on the sidepod's upper surface will energize that flow, something that you hear a lot in tech breakdowns, which basically means make move faster. Aston Martin's technical director Dan Fallows accepted that the sidepod alterations were a big visual change, but he was playing down its significance. Physically, it's a very big update, he said, but there are things less visible we've done to the car before now, which are also quite significant. We're trying to put consistent development on the car rather than wait for a few races then have a big update. This is not necessarily the biggest update we've put on the car in terms of performance. The basic philosophy behind Aston Martin's sidepod design is that it is doing everything it can to improve the underfloor. The ground effect floors produce roughly 60% of the overall car's downforce, so anything the teams can do to make them work better is worthwhile, as long as it doesn't impact other parts too much. It wasn't just the performance of the floor that was improved though, as Dan Fallows finished by saying, "We try to improve the operating window of the car. We can see there are some circuits we are weaker or stronger, and we want to try and make it so it's drivable and usable on as many circuits as we can." That has been a problem for Aston Martin so far this season. They're far better on circuits with predominantly low-speed corners, as Spain with its full complement of high-speed corners showed. The boost from these new sidepods and the consistent upgrades that will come over the next few races means Fernando Alonso might be close to battling with Max Verstappen in the 2023 season, a fate that has been achieved by no one so far. Even though he was untouchable in the race, it wouldn't be wrong to say that the number 14 Aston Martin was in close range of the Red Bull by the end of the race. While it seemed almost impossible for an overtake, the Silverstone-based outfit crew certainly believe they will soon be close in that battle. Alonso had a problem during the race. The team made repeated and mysterious orders to Alonso to lift and coast in order to not push his engine to the limit. Aston Martin team principal Mike Crack explained the reason behind the orders, saying that their data had found a potential issue with Alonso's car. The issue was thought to be a fuel flow problem that might have left Alonso dead on track with no fuel to run his engine. Thankfully, this problem did not materialize in the end. Crack said, "We thought we had a problem with the fuel system, but we were not sure. So as a precaution, we said the best thing is to save some fuel and to do lift and coast." When the order was first given over the radio, Alonso responded by saying he didn't want to lift and coast, as he wanted to win the race. Clearly, he thought he had the speed to challenge Max in the race. We'll never know for sure, but when Alonso was allowed to push again, he quickly pulled away from the chasing Lewis Hamilton, who had got within a few seconds while Alonso was managing his pace. It isn't just Alonso that thinks the team are ready to fight for a race win. Apparently the data from the wind tunnel and the simulations are so good that there are people in the team who already trust the car to drive at Red Bull's level when they can get a better understanding of the upgrade. "We will only be able to optimize the package in Spielberg and Silverstone," said Alonso. The heavily disrupted free practice in Montreal meant that Aston Martin didn't get anywhere near as much dry weather running with their new upgrades as they would have liked. The next stop of the season is at the ever-orange-bathed Red Bull Ring in Austria, a track that can be extremely wet at times. Last season, Alonso was involved in an incredible 5-car battle between 8th and 12th place that went on for most of lap 25. The track itself isn't too dissimilar in cornering characteristics to the track in Montreal. The Red Bull Ring has a number of low-speed corners with big straights in between, which suits the AMR23. If there is dry running during practice, then Aston Martin should have plenty of time to assess their new upgrade, get their setup sorted and refined, and hopefully give Alonso a chance at a race win, or at least a fight with Verstappen. I'm not getting my hopes up just yet, but I can see a route to it happening. Verstappen, who was triumphant in 6 of the 8 races so far this season, admitted Aston Martin's upgrades brought them closer to Red Bull in Canada. From our side, I don't think it was our best day, because of the tyre temps and stuff, so that doesn't help, said the 2-time world champion. But I also know that with their updates, they naturally of course improved, so for sure they got closer to us. There were mitigating factors though which may have made the gap deceptively small in Canada. Verstappen radioed his team on lap 11 of the Montreal event to notify the pit wall that he had struck a bird on the exit of one of the corners. The Dutchman's car did not appear to suffer any major damage. However, during post-race inspections, when his RB19 was returned to the garage, Red Bull found that the remains of the animal had got stuck in the area around the front right brake duct. Team boss Christian Horner said, "I think the biggest moment he had was hitting that bird, which just did half the race behind the front right brake duct." Verstappen himself also revealed that he spotted the remains after he had climbed out of the car at the end. "It was still stuck on my car when I came in. It didn't look great," he told Sky. "I also feel sorry for the mechanic having to remove it." The poor animal will have affected the airflow through that part of the car, definitely impacting his performance. He's actually lucky it didn't affect the airflow into his brakes too much, or he could have suffered the same fate as George Russell, who had to retire due to brake temp issues. Red Bull's sub-10 seconds winning margin is their lowest of the season so far, barring the Australian Grand Prix which finished under the safety car. Verstappen admitted he wasn't pushing flat out throughout the entire race, partly due to the behaviour of the tyres. "It's tough because normally it's all about tyre management, but today was definitely more about pushing," he said. "But sometimes it was just going up and down a lot in lap time, so then sometimes you couldn't actually push to the limit because you didn't know what you were going to get." Verstappen suspects Alonso ended the race closer to him partly because the Red Bull was less competitive in Montreal, and partly due to the upgrades Aston Martin brought last weekend. He said he was not worried about being caught by Alonso during the race. "You are alert because you keep checking. Is he catching or not? What do I need to do?" At the beginning of the race when he passed Lewis, I thought, okay, let's see what his pace is. And then initially it was quick, and then I could manage my pace around it. While Montreal wasn't quite as close as it seemed on the timing sheet, Austria is another opportunity for Alonso to battle Max for a race win. And I'll be keeping my fingers crossed it happens. Do you think with some time refining their upgrades, Alonso can fight Max in Austria? Let me know your predictions in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.